Welcome back to the Desk Talk Podcast with your hosts, Trent Werner and Alex Magala, bringing you weekly episodes talking business, personal development, and all things real estate. Let's do it! Welcome to the desk. Let's talk about wholesaling in a time of global pandemicness.
That's a good word.
I didn't know how else to phrase that.
Global pandemicness.
I was going to say global turmoil, but that sounded too aggressive, so we're going to go global pandemicness.
In a time of uncertainty.
Yeah, okay. Uncertain times. There we go. So for those of you who don't know, wholesale real estate sometimes gets a bad rap. It can be considered shady or, slimy kind of. You don't have to actually have your real estate license to be a wholesaler, yada, yada, yada. I, however, think that wholesalers are awesome, because they can find you really good deals. And as an investor, you want to find the best deals for the cheapest prices. And that's all wholesalers do, is they door knock, call, mailers. They're the ones out there getting the deals in contract for really good prices, and then they blast it out to you. So you don't have to do all the legwork. However, there's some wholesalers, since it is not regulated, that, you might get caught up with, or
don't get caught with your pants down.
Yeah, you just got to, make sure you're being diligent. Especially if it's a new wholesaler that you've never met before. But I was talking with one today, new guy, had about a half-hour phone call with him, or video call with him, and I was asking him if he's seen any multifamily or investment real estate pop up that he has wholesaled recently, or that he's seen, because typically it's a single-family house, it's given to the kids after a parent dies and they just want quick cash, or it's a house that someone inherited and they just kind of let it go to crap and they need to sell it quickly, or a hoarder. Hoarders are, a big wholesale situation, or when tenants trash the place. Those types of things are what we typically see. But lately, because of the eviction moratorium in Oregon, more investment properties have been on wholesale lists that we've seen. And, before 9, 10, maybe 12 months ago, I don't think I ever saw a tenant-occupied wholesale deal come across my desk.
Yeah, I mean, we're only speaking for our market, but I'm sure this is the case across a lot of places that have put the whole eviction moratorium in place. I know we have a very strict one here. Same with California, certain areas, but yeah, it's definitely a time where people are starting to realize, like, okay, if I can't keep this up. If I'm not getting paid on this end from my investment property, then, they're probably 1031ing, selling it and getting out or something. They're doing some way to keep their cash and getting out of it, instead of just kind of bleeding and hoping that this is going to come back. Like the tenants don't have to pay rent, but technically that rent's like supposed to be owed back. But it's, it's just like if they haven't been able to make that rent payment, like how at the end of month 12 they're going to pay back all 12 months. It's just, it doesn't make sense to see how they're going to get their money, and so I can see how investment owners are starting to kind of like freak out, and this is their move to not get caught with their pants down.
Yeah, and I didn't know how to. I mean, if I was in that position, luckily, knock on wood, I'm not. But if I was in that position, there's forbearance on the actual loan side. If they have a loan on the property, they could forbear their payments. If they owned it cash, well then, yeah, you're missing out on, maybe it's like their actual spending money that they rely on. That's tough. But then you could always go get you could do a cash out refi for $100,000 or something that kind of tied you over until you get rent payments again. I just don't. I mean, the only situation that I can think of that you'd want to sell it is if you were kind of like on the fence about it in the first place. You have a lot of equity, and you're one of those people that's just like, hey, I want to get out of Oregon or Portland investment, Multnomah County, that kind of thing. Then I could see it, maybe, yeah, I'll just take my cash and get on with it. But it's hard for me to see and understand why an investor would sell their property for so much less than they could get if they put it on the MLS or they listed it normally, and go through the wholesale side.
True.
I'm trying to understand that.
From the loan side of things, like entering into forbearance, yeah, it's an option, but it's not that great of an option, because as an investor, if you have a property that goes into forbearance, say last April you put your property into forbearance, right when like the peak of this April, March, the peak of the coronavirus was going on.
Mm-hmm.
You have to basically, you couldn't buy another property or do another loan until April or March if you deferred one payment. If you deferred either of those payments and started becoming current again for 11 out of those 12 months, you still have to wait until April, because that's just like the rules with deferring those payments. So it's actually, in their eyes, someone who kind of knows that that's going on and knows that it's going to hinder them from qualifying for something else. And that's not even like an investment property. You want to do your refi on your primary. It completely kills your whole thing if it shows up on your credit report and it says payment was deferred and it's just 1 month. So that's a big issue that they're probably realizing, okay, instead of going into forbearance, instead of just continuing letting, this wound just bleed, like I'm going to stitch it up by getting out, getting my cash, getting what cash I can get quickly, and then just dumping it into another property that is actually going to produce some income. So that's how I can kind of see it from the loan side, is these people understand like forbearance, yeah, it's an option that they put out there, and yeah, it's going to go back on the end of the loan and I'm not paying it now, so technically it's not that bad. But if you did go into forbearance and you deferred any payments at all, it's still a negative kind of look on it.
Okay, that brings me to my next point. Still, before
but you're right, wholesaling versus just selling,
just listing it. And there's people that I was telling you guys before we started recording this. The guy I talked with today said some of his investors, if it's a tenant-occupied property that the tenant's not paying, they don't even want to look at it because they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to have to deal with a non-paying tenant.
If you wholesale, do you avoid certain taxes?
No, you get taxed the same.
I'm trying to wrap my head around why it would make sense for them.
Well, it's because they're in a pinch and they want cash sooner than later, because
they don't want to wait 30 days.
Wholesale is like 2-week closes, cash, or hard
money. Or
money.
Potential to fall out of contract and continue just waiting and not having that money.
Yeah.
You need cash now. J.G. Wentworth.
No free ads. So then I'm thinking about, okay, if there was a deal, let's say, because he told me an example of one, I want to say it sold for like $325. It was a duplex in the Portland metro area. $325. Just because the tenant's not paying rent, I didn't know the condition of the property and that kind of thing. Maybe it was trash. I don't know. But still, $325. Good deal. If a tenant's not paying rent, and maybe they haven't been paying rent for months now, if you bought that property for $325, don't you think you could go offer the tenant or tenants, if there's 2 units not paying rent, $10,000? And do you think they would take it?
Probably.
Yeah. So, for $10,000, they're out of there.
Legal that they're like, if you want them out, that they're like technically owed. Isn't there what is it called? Relocation assistance fees that go into certain, like 1 bedroom. I know 3 bedroom is like $4,500 in this area.
Mm-hmm. So 2 bedrooms, $4,200.
If you came to them with something like you looked at that and you're double what they're technically owed, if you did get them out, it's just like, hey, here's a sweet offer if you're out now.
Yeah, and that's called a cash for keys agreement. You
can probably get, especially if you're getting duplex, triplex? Duplex. If it's just a duplex and you're going to occupy one side, well, that's easy. And say both are occupied. You can get one out because you're going to occupy a unit. And now the other one's just, okay, I got it for $325.
Your payment's low.
I probably can give them an extra, $10,000, $15,000 to get out.
And most of the time, you don't have to go up to 10. Because in Portland, and that's one thing that's nice about the relocation assistance.
Could you technically finance that, I wonder? That's a good question for myself.
I don't think so. Because, a wholesale deal, you're going to use hard money anyway, so I guess you could put that in the renovation budget, kind of. Yeah. But because of the Portland Relocation Assistance numbers, there's certain situations where if a property is being sold and the buyer plans on moving into as their prime residence, you can still give a 90-day notice to a tenant even during this moratorium, and they have to move out, but you have to pay relocation assistance. Well, if maybe they have another place that they can move to, or they're buying a house anyway, or something like that, and they can move out in 30 days instead of 90 days, now you don't have to give the 90-day notice, and you say, hey, I'll give you, let's say the relocation assistance is $4,200. I'll give you $4,200 if you can move out in a month, and boom, now the buyers can move in earlier. And so there's ways around it, and that's the same principle if you have a tenant not paying rent. If they owe you, let's say the rent's $1,500 a month, and they haven't been paying for 10 months, they owe you $15,000. and you say, hey, I'll give you $7,000 and forgive that 15 if you just move out in 45 days, who's not going to take that?
Yeah, or I mean, you probably wouldn't even have to offer him the whole $7,000. You could just say, hey, that $15,000, like, we'll waive it if you're out in 30 days.
Yeah, and I've actually approached that.
And like
as well.
a lot of people are going to understand that's probably better for them than to just sit in this property and
keep digging a hole.
Yeah, once it finally, it's just, yeah, exactly. Keep digging a hole deeper and deeper. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, at least this is a way out, free and clear. I start fresh. It doesn't go on my record as super against me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a positive.
You're going to avoid an eviction because you're probably not going to be able to pay that rent back. And then once all the eviction moratorium stuff is over with and the courts are going crazy, now you're dealing with an eviction in a very stressful time when the courts are jam-packed and there's all this going every which way. Or you could just be forgiven that back rent and find a new place to live.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So maybe as an investor, it wouldn't be that bad of an idea to start looking at kind of wholesale properties and
That's what I'm saying.
figuring out what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
Because
And
if I mean, where people are avoiding, like, that could be prime opportunity if you're a long-term thinker. It's like if you're not thinking where someone's in this year, they're stuck in this year, and they're like, oh, my God, my funds for this year. It's like if you know 5 years from now, it's like, okay, I can get into this, figure some out, and it'll be fine in 5 years. It's just like weather the storm. Some
And
people have to kind of jump ship.
You're reducing the amount of competition that everyone else is dealing with in a very competitive market. If you can go after things that are a little bit more stressful and you have to solve maybe one or two more problems, you're going to reduce your competition a lot.
Yep. So, yeah, there you have it.
That's all I wanted to talk about at the desk today.
It's weird, definitely weird
What?
that people are doing, like, investors are just flipping it straight into wholesales, but obviously it gives opportunity for other people out there. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, maybe it might make sense to look at those and go hard money for 6 months to however long. So, yeah, there you have it.
If you had any questions about hard money or wholesaling, let us know in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, and share it. That's all we got. We're at the desk. We're done talking. We'll see you next week. Adios.
Peace. That's the end of today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. It truly means a lot to us. If you haven't already, please subscribe and share this with friends. This helps fuel the podcast and gets more and more guests on our show. Hey, go follow us on Instagram as well. Desk Talk Podcast. Go connect with Trent and I as well. We're on Instagram too, LinkedIn, you name it. Stay tuned for more episodes. Peace.